Story 1. The Vanishing Key Mystery. When Emma married Jake after 6 years of dating, she knew his family dynamics were complicated. Jake had distanced himself from them, especially his sister, Olivia. But Emma, being from a big loving family, wanted to bridge the gap. When Olivia reached out, Emma saw it as an opportunity for healing. Olivia was charming, persuasive, and seemed eager to reconnect. She visited Emma occasionally while Jake was at work. Then one day Olivia asked for a key to their house, citing concern for Emma's well-being since she worked from home. Something about the request felt off, so Emma declined. A few days later her house key vanished. Suspicion led her to Olivia's supposed apartment, but a stranger answered the door, claiming no one by that name lived there. When Emma confronted Olivia via text, she received the same address again, deepening her unease. Eventually she confessed everything to Jake, who revealed the dark truth. His sister had a history of manipulation, entitlement, and even substance abuse. Realizing the danger, they changed the locks immediately. A week later, their neighbor reported seeing a suspicious woman trying to break into their home. It was Olivia. They called the police, and though Jake refused to press charges, he filed for a restraining order. Emma learned a hard lesson about trust and boundaries. She had tried to help, but at the cost of ignoring Jake's warnings. What would you have done in Emma's place? Would you have given Olivia a second chance or trusted Jake's instincts from the start? Story 2. The Renovation Disaster. Mark and Susan, a retired couple, spent half the year in Florida and the other half in Connecticut. When their daughter Lily and her husband Ethan bought their first home, Mark offered to help renovate their kitchen. It started as a simple floor installation but soon spiraled out of control when they discovered rotting horsehair plaster behind the walls. Mark suggested removing cabinets to do the job properly, and before they knew it, their kitchen was gutted. With Lily 6 months pregnant, the stress mounted. When Mark left for Florida, progress stalled, permits became an issue, and they were left without a functioning kitchen for months. Frustrated, Lily accused Mark of starting a project he couldn't finish and not taking responsibility. Mark, hurt by the accusations, pulled back entirely. When Lily later invited them to her baby shower, they refused, feeling unappreciated. Now the family is fractured. Ethan reached out, asking them to reconsider, but resentment lingers. Who do you think was in the wrong? Was Mark's help a blessing or a burden? Story 3. A Sister's Betrayal. Charlotte always looked up to her older sister, Vanessa. But after Charlotte inherited their grandmother's heirloom necklace, Vanessa changed. She insisted the necklace rightfully belonged to her and became distant when Charlotte refused to hand it over. One day, Charlotte returned home to find her apartment ransacked, and the necklace was missing. Suspicion immediately fell on Vanessa, but there was no proof, until Charlotte checked a local pawn shop and found the necklace on display. The owner revealed it had been sold just hours earlier, by Vanessa. Charlotte confronted her, but Vanessa showed no remorse. Devastated, Charlotte had to decide, press charges or cut her sister out of her life forever. What would you do if your own sibling betrayed you like this? Story 4. The Unexpected Tenant. David inherited his grandmother's old house in a quiet neighborhood. Excited to fix it up, he started renovations. But when he arrived one day, he found someone living inside, a man named Eric who claimed to have a lease. Confused and frustrated, David checked the records. To his shock, Eric had a lease signed by David's estranged uncle, who had been illegally renting the house out. Eric refused to leave, citing tenant rights, and the legal battle stretched on for months. As David struggled with legal fees and the emotional toll, he had to decide whether to fight or offer Eric a deal. What would you do in David's situation? Fight for your rightful property or find a compromise? Story 5. The Wedding Day Dilemma. Sophia had always dreamed of a perfect wedding. But when she announced her engagement, her best friend, Mia, shocked her with unexpected jealousy. Mia insisted on being the maid of honor, but when Sophia chose her sister instead, Mia was furious. On the wedding day, Mia was supposed to be a bridesmaid, but she arrived wearing white, drawing attention away from Sophia. Tension grew, and when Mia gave a passive-aggressive speech at the reception, Sophia had enough. Should she confront Mia and risk ruining the friendship or let it go to keep the peace? Story 6. The Vanishing Business Partner. Leo and his childhood friend, Ryan, started a business together. At first, everything was great, but then Ryan began withdrawing money without explanation. When Leo confronted him, Ryan promised it was just a misunderstanding. Then one morning, Leo arrived at the office to find Ryan gone, and so was most of their business's funds. Ryan had disappeared, leaving Leo to pick up the pieces. Should Leo pursue legal action or try to rebuild the business without looking back? Story 7. The Ghosted Bridesmaid. Jenna and Ava had been best friends since childhood, so when Jenna got engaged she immediately asked Ava to be her bridesmaid. Ava agreed enthusiastically but soon became distant, ignoring texts, missing dress fittings and avoiding wedding events. 3 weeks before the wedding Jenna received a text from Ava. "I can't be in your wedding. Sorry." No explanation, no call, nothing. Jenna was heartbroken. Should she demand an explanation, or accept that Ava wasn't the friend she thought she was? Story 8. The Inheritance Feud. After their father's passing, siblings Michael and Anna were left with a difficult decision: how to divide the family home. Anna wanted to sell, while Michael wanted to keep it as a rental property. Tensions escalated when Anna found out Michael had already moved in and changed the locks without discussing it. Furious, she threatened legal action. Should Michael be forced to sell, or does he have a right to keep the home? Story 9. The Mysterious Package. Lena started receiving strange packages in the mail, gifts, notes, even flowers, with no sender information. At first she thought it was a mistake, but the deliveries became more personal, referencing things only someone close to her would know. When she asked her boyfriend, Daniel, he swore it wasn't him. Then one day she opened a package to find a single, chilling note. "I see you." Who could be behind the messages and what should Lena do next? Story 10. The Forgotten Debt. Nina lent her best friend, Claire, $5,000 when she was struggling with medical bills. Claire promised to pay her back as soon as she could. Months turned into years and Claire never mentioned the loan again. One day Nina casually brought it up but Claire brushed it off saying, "I thought you gave it to me, not loaned it." Now Nina is torn. Should she push for repayment and risk the friendship or let it go? Story 11. The Birthday Betrayal. Liam planned a surprise birthday party for his girlfriend, Sophie. He invited all her friends, booked her favorite restaurant, and even arranged for her childhood best friend to fly in. The night of the party, Sophie canceled last minute, saying she was too tired. Liam later found out she had gone out with her ex instead. Should he confront her or walk away? Story 12. The Babysitter's Secret. When Rachel hired a babysitter for her 2-year-old son, everything seemed fine. Lucy was great with kids and came highly recommended. One day Rachel came home earlier than expected and found Lucy asleep on the couch, while her son was outside, alone in the front yard. Lucy insisted it was a mistake, but Rachel isn't sure she can trust her again. Should she fire Lucy or give her another chance? Story 13. The Vanishing Tenant. Jacob rented his spare apartment to a quiet young man named Ben. 4 months, everything was fine, until Jacob went to collect rent one day and found the apartment completely empty. Ben had disappeared overnight, leaving unpaid rent and even selling some of the furniture. Should Jacob track him down and take legal action, or cut his losses and move on? Story 14. The Wedding Invitation Dilemma. When Olivia got engaged, she was overjoyed to plan her wedding. But when making the guest list, she hesitated. Should she invite her estranged cousin, Danielle? They had been close as kids, but a huge falling out split their families apart. Olivia's parents warned her against inviting Danielle, saying it would create drama. But Olivia still felt guilty leaving her out. Should she listen to her parents or follow her heart? Story 15. The Inheritance Feud. After their father passed away, Ethan and his brother, Daniel, discovered that the entire inheritance had been left to Ethan. Daniel, furious, accused Ethan of manipulating their father into cutting him out of the will. Ethan didn't ask for this. He had always tried to keep the family together. Now he had to decide, share the inheritance to keep peace or honor his father's wishes. What would you do? Story 16. The Best Friend's Lie. Megan and Jenna had been inseparable for years. When Jenna got a new job, Megan was thrilled for her, until she found out that Jenna had actually taken a job Megan had secretly applied for. Jenna never mentioned knowing about it, and when Megan confronted her, she shrugged and said, "I needed the job more." Betrayed, Megan must decide, should she forgive Jenna or walk away from the friendship? Story 17. The Neighbor's Hidden Past. Ben and Lisa moved into their dream home in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Their next-door neighbor, Mr. Turner, was friendly but kept to himself. One night, Lisa stumbled across an old newspaper article about a man with the same name involved in a decades-old missing person case. Could it be the same person? Should they confront him or let the past stay buried? Story 18. The Surprise DNA Test. When Jessica took a DNA test for fun, she expected to learn more about her ancestry. Instead, she discovered she had a half-brother she never knew existed. Her mother denied everything at first but eventually admitted to an affair years ago. Now Jessica has to decide, should she reach out to her half-brother or keep her mother's secret? Story 19. The Mysterious Letter. Emily received an anonymous letter in the mail, warning her to be careful who she trusts. At first she thought it was a prank, but then strange things started happening. Her locked car was found open, her mail went missing, and she felt like someone was watching her. Who sent the letter? Was it a warning or a threat? Story 20. The Babysitter's Secret. Lena and Tom hired a new babysitter, Claire, to watch their 2-year-old daughter, Ava. She was great, until one day, Lena found an old photo in her husband's drawer. It was a picture of Tom and Claire, from years ago. When Lena confronted him, he hesitated before saying, "It's complicated." What would you do in Lena's shoes? Story 21. The Fake Friend. Nina's best friend, Lacey, always supported her, until Nina overheard her talking behind her back. Lacey called her desperate and pathetic for chasing her dreams. Hurt and betrayed, Nina had to decide, should she confront Lacey, cut her off, or pretend she never heard it? Story 22. The Wrong House. After a long flight, Adam checked into his Airbnb exhausted. But in the middle of the night, he woke up to find an elderly woman standing in the living room. "What are you doing in my house?" she asked. Confused and terrified, Adam double-checked the address. It was correct. So why was she there? Story 23. The Ex's Revenge. Sophie broke up with her toxic ex, Darren, and moved on. But one day she saw a social media post. Darren had started dating her younger sister. Was it love or was he just trying to hurt Sophie? What should she do? Story 24. The Vanished Groom. On her wedding day, Brooke waited at the altar, but her fiancé, Ryan, never showed up. At first, she thought he got cold feet, until she found his phone left behind in their apartment with a cryptic text. "I had no choice. I'm sorry." Had he run away or was something more sinister at play? Story 25. The Haunted Phone. Mia bought a second-hand phone at a great price, but strange things started happening. She received texts from an unknown number saying, "You shouldn't have taken it." At first she ignored them, but then her phone started unlocking on its own, and one night she woke up to find it playing a video of her sleeping. Who was watching her? And what was the real story behind the phone? Story 26. The Doppelganger. Lucas was walking home when he saw someone who looked exactly like him across the street. Same clothes, same face. He was about to call out when the man turned and smirked before disappearing into a crowd. That night, Lucas's mother called him, panicked. "Why didn't you say hi earlier? I saw you at the cafe but you ignored me." Lucas had never been to that cafe. Was someone impersonating him or was something more sinister going on? Story 27. The Disappearing Neighbor. Jenna always greeted her friendly neighbor, Mr. Clark, every morning. But one day she saw moving trucks in front of his house. "Where's Mr. Clark?" she asked. The movers gave her a confused look. "No one's lived here for years." Jenna swore she had spoken to him just yesterday. Had she imagined it? Or was there something about the house she didn't know? Story 28. The Mysterious Tattoo. Ethan woke up one morning with a tattoo on his wrist, his own handwriting that read, "Don't trust her." The problem? He had no memory of getting it and he didn't know who he wasn't supposed to trust. As he tried to unravel the mystery, he realized someone had been in his apartment while he was asleep. Story 29. The Stranger in the Mirror. Ella had a habit of talking to herself in the mirror. But one night as she turned away, she saw her reflection smile, when she hadn't. Terrified, she ran out of the room. When she worked up the courage to look again, everything seemed normal. But then she noticed, her reflection was wearing the wrong shirt. Story 30. The Secret Room. When James inherited his grandfather's old mansion, he started exploring the dusty, abandoned rooms. But one night, a strong wind pushed open a door he had never noticed before. Inside he found a fully furnished bedroom, untouched for decades. On the desk there was a letter addressed to him. The date? 30 years before he was born. Story 31. The Vanishing Coworker. Daniel worked late shifts at his office, often sharing the space with a quiet coworker named Andy. One night Andy offered to grab coffee but he never returned. The next day Daniel asked about him, but HR said no one named Andy had ever worked there. Then why was Andy's desk still filled with personal items? And why did his computer suddenly power on when Daniel walked by? Story 32. The Wrong House. Emily was exhausted when she arrived home, unlocking the door and stepping inside. Everything looked exactly as she had left it. But then she saw a family sitting at the dinner table, staring at her in shock. "Who are you? What are you doing in our house?" they asked. Emily turned and looked at the house number. It was her address. Then where was her real home? Story 33, the elevator that never stopped. Ben was heading home from work when he stepped into the office elevator. He pressed his floor number, but instead of stopping, the elevator kept going past the top floor. It climbed higher and higher, the numbers changing to symbols he didn't recognize. When the doors finally opened, it wasn't his office anymore. Story 34, the forgotten birthday party. Sophie was excited for her birthday party. She sent out invitations, decorated her house, and prepared a feast. But when the day came, no one showed up. She checked her phone, no messages. Confused, she called her best friend. "Sophie, your birthday was last week. We already celebrated." But Sophie had no memory of it. And then she saw a photo of herself at a party she didn't remember attending. Story 35, the whispering vents. Jake moved into a new apartment and noticed a strange quirk. At night, the air vents whispered. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but then he started hearing his own name. Then one night, the whispering stopped. Instead, a voice from inside the vent simply said, "I finally found you." Story 36, the receipt from the future. Lena was cleaning out her purse when she found a receipt from a coffee shop dated 3 days in the future. She had never been there before. Out of curiosity, she visited the shop on that exact date, and saw herself sitting at a table talking to a stranger. But when she approached, her future self looked up in terror and whispered, "You weren't supposed to see this." Story 37, the silent passenger. Michael took the last train home one night and found an empty seat across from an old man. They rode in silence until the lights flickered. When they turned back on, the old man was gone, but his reflection remained in the train window, staring directly at Michael. Story 38, the babysitter's call. Lisa was babysitting for a new family when she received a text from an unknown number. "Check the baby monitor." Her heart raced as she pulled up the camera feed. The crib was empty. Story 39, the missing date. Oliver went on an amazing first date with a woman named Rachel. They laughed, shared stories, and made plans to meet again. The next day, he looked her up on social media. There was no trace of her. He checked the restaurant's reservation log. There was no record of Rachel ever being there. Story 40, the clock that moved backward. Hannah found an antique clock at a flea market that ran backward. She thought it was broken, but then she noticed something strange. Whenever she set it down, small things around her changed. Her coffee cup moved. Her phone was in a different pocket. Then she set it back 1 hour and saw her reflection in the mirror blink. Before she did. Story 41, the room that didn't exist. Josh moved into a new apartment and was excited to explore. One day while cleaning, he noticed a door he swore hadn't been there before. He opened it and found a fully furnished bedroom as if someone had been living there. But when he asked his landlord, they said, "That room doesn't exist." Story 42, the photo in the attic. Mia was helping her grandmother clean the attic when she found an old photo album. Flipping through, she stopped at a picture of a young girl who looked exactly like her. "Oh," her grandmother said shakily. "That was my first daughter, but she disappeared when she was your age." Mia had never heard of her before. Story 43, the stranger in the reflection. Leo had always been fascinated by mirrors. But one night as he walked past, his reflection didn't move with him. He just stood there staring. Then it smiled. Story 44, the wrong call. Sarah received a voicemail from an unknown number. "Don't go to work tomorrow?" The next morning, she ignored it and went anyway. Midway through her shift, a gas explosion rocked the building. The number was disconnected when she tried to call back. Story 45, the apartment above. Jack kept hearing footsteps above his apartment, even though the unit was supposed to be empty. One night he went to check. He knocked. No answer. But as he turned to leave, he heard someone whisper his name from the other side of the door. Story 46, the statue that moved. Lily's town had an old statue in the park. It was nothing special, just a figure of a man staring straight ahead. But one day she noticed the statue was looking slightly to the left. The next day it had turned even more. By the end of the week, it was facing directly at her house. Story 47, the forgotten friend. Adam was looking through childhood photos when he noticed something strange. There was a boy in every picture with him. Smiling. Playing. Standing beside him. But Adam had no memory of this friend. He asked his parents. They went pale and said, "We don't talk about him." Story 48, the locked diary. Sophia bought an antique diary with a lock on it but no key. One night she heard pages flipping. In the morning the diary was open. And her name was written on the last page, along with tomorrow's date. Story 49, The Passenger Who Wasn't There. David was driving late at night when he glanced in his rearview mirror. There was someone sitting in his back seat. He swerved, panicked, but when he turned around, no one was there. But the seatbelt was still buckled. Story 50, The Email from the Future. One morning, Emily received an email from herself. The timestamp? 3 years in the future. It only said, "Don't trust him." She didn't know who it meant, until she met Alex later that day. Story 51, The Familiar Stranger. Lisa was walking through the mall when a man waved at her. "Hey Lisa. Long time no see," he said cheerfully. She had no idea who he was. "Come on," he laughed, "don't tell me you forgot already." Lisa smiled awkwardly and walked away. But when she checked her phone she found an old picture from years ago, her standing beside that same man. Story 52, The Never-Ending Road. Jake was driving through the countryside when he saw a sign, Evergreen Road, 10 miles ahead. An hour later he saw the same sign again. And then again. He checked his GPS. It still said, Evergreen Road, 10 miles ahead. He turned the car around. The sign was behind him too. Story 53, The Voice in the Baby Monitor. Anna had just put her baby to sleep when she heard soft whispering through the baby monitor. "Shoo, don't wake her up." Her heart dropped. She was home alone. Story 54, The Missing Time. Ethan woke up late for work and checked the clock. 7:42 a.m. He blinked. The clock now read 12:07 p.m. His phone had dozens of missed calls. He had no memory of the last 5 hours. Story 55, The Hotel Room That Wasn't There. Mark checked into a small motel for the night and was given room 306. The next morning he went to return the key. The receptionist frowned. "Sir, we don't have a room 306. Story 56, The Painting That Changed. Olivia's grandmother had an old portrait hanging in her hallway. It was a painting of a little girl with a solemn expression. One day Olivia swore she saw the girl smiling. The next morning the girl's head was tilted slightly. By the end of the week, the girl in the painting was looking directly at Olivia. Story 57, The Friend Request. Jason got a friend request on social media from his best friend, Matt. The problem? Matt had died 2 years ago. Story 58, The Roommate's Secret. Karen had a new roommate, Amy, who was quiet and reserved. One day, Karen accidentally knocked over Amy's purse and found an old ID card inside. The name and photo didn't match Amy at all. When Karen confronted her, Amy just smiled and said, "I was wondering when you'd find out." Story 59, The House That Watched. Ben moved into a new house and started noticing something odd. Whenever he came home, the curtains in different rooms were open, even though he always left them closed. One night he set up a camera. The next morning, the footage showed the curtains slowly pulling back on their own. Story 60, The Wrong Reflection. Sophia was brushing her hair in front of the mirror when she dropped her brush. She bent down to pick it up. When she stood back up, her reflection was still bent over. Story 61, The Elevator That Didn't Stop. Nina stepped into her office building's elevator and pressed the button for the 10th floor. The elevator moved up past the 10th floor. Then the 20th. Then the 50th. There were only 10 floors in the building. Story 62, The Babysitter's Call. Megan was babysitting when the house phone rang. "Check on the children," a voice whispered. She hung up. The parents only had one child. And she was already asleep. Upstairs she heard footsteps. Story 63, The Familiar Knock. Every night at exactly 2:37 a.m., Daniel heard 3 slow knocks on his front door. One night he finally opened it. There was no one there. But the next morning muddy footprints led from his door to his bedroom. Story 64, The Wrong Number. Sarah got a text from an unknown number. "Don't go into the kitchen." She frowned and walked toward the kitchen. Her phone buzzed again. "I said don't." Story 65, The Hotel Guest Who Never Left. Alex checked into an old hotel and was given room 409. The receptionist smiled. "Oh, you're staying in his room," she said. "Whose room?" Alex asked. "The man who checked in years ago. He never checked out." Story 66, The Birthday Wish. For his 8th birthday, Max wished for his stuffed bear to talk. That night he woke up to a whisper. "Max, it worked." Story 67, The Locked Closet. Sophie's new apartment had a closet she couldn't open. Her landlord swore there was nothing inside. One night, she woke up to the sound of knocking, coming from inside the closet. Story 68, The Forgotten Friend. Jamie found an old picture of his kindergarten class. There was a girl in the photo he didn't recognize. He asked his mom. She went pale. Jamie, that girl never existed. Story 69, The Old Swing Set. Every night at 3 a.m., the swing in the backyard moved back and forth, by itself. One night, Mark watched from the window. A shadowy figure was sitting in the swing, staring at him. Story 70, The Silent Passenger. Emily took a late-night cab home. The driver never spoke. When she arrived, she turned to thank him. There was no one in the driver's seat. Each of these gripping stories reminds us how unpredictable life can be. Trust can be shattered, relationships tested, and the unexpected lurking just around the corner. Whether it's a family betrayal, a deceptive friend, or a legal battle for what's rightfully yours, these tales show that tough choices define our futures. Would you fight back, forgive, or walk away? Life is full of twists, and sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. If you love thrilling stories like these, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more.